Yeah. Who wants to hear a story? I know I do. Hey you, sitting there with nothing to do, why don't you come over here and maybe try something new? Yes you, don't waste your time just planting your seeds. Let's partake in FlameAmigo619 reads. You got a pick, he'll read ya, hilarity he'll feed ya, or maybe deep emotions, whatever the feeling doesn't matter. Either solo or with friends, we're going on a trip to faraway places, or maybe not, just take a tip from me. He does have some standards, they're not far-fetched, it's a stretch, so keep that in mind, don't be a bitch. So kick up your feet, find something comfy to sit in, and enjoy the show. Now let us begin.
Oh heys, welcome back to FlameAmigo619. We are back with more Animal Crossing. About time, because some of you are wondering when the next episode is coming out. Where's the next episode coming out? Where's the next episode coming out? We are back with more Animal Crossing and stuff. This episode 2 consists of four parts. We're not going to waste any time. If you haven't seen episode 1, please go back and watch, because let's just say from here on out, we're going to find out more about Tom Nook. We're also going to find out some pretty interesting secrets.
Aren't you gonna introduce us, dumb butt?
Oh yes, we also have people that are returning for tonight. We have Will.
Yes, and more yes.
Currently, he is in his mobile home.
I am not in my mobile home. I'm just in my mobile kitchen making burgers.
Ah, okay. Jewel.
Hello.
Joey.
Figures! I got figures! Good for me!
No one cares.
None.
I am such a kid.
You are. Tanya.
I'm a genius.
Sage.
Curry chicken is hot.
And Bane, who is muted.
Who shrank in the wash?
Now, let's get this out of the way. If y'all is ready for this, be prepared to sit down for some more creepypasta enjoyment.
Who's gonna be playing who? I forgot.
There's only 5 characters in this. We have Penny and Tom Nook will be again played by Jewel and Will, and we have 3 secondary characters that will be filled as needed. When we last left all the stuff that happened in Animal Crossing, we had this little boy named, what's his name? Billy? Yeah, Billy. And he ended up in this little place called Animal Crossing. It's camp place thing. He can't get out. He finds all these balloons with boxes from a girl named Penny, and now he's figured out that the entire Animal Crossing camp place is now him just being stuck on an island. Okay, seems legit. Part 6. Hurry up and wait. It was the same pattern over and over here. The rise before the fall. Everything seems to be looking up, getting better. You can see the proverbial light at the end of the tunnel, and then the hammer drops, and you're pounded to a level you didn't know you could sink to. But somehow, life goes on. I was so lucky to have Penny. If I were alone, this new knowledge might have been the end of me. Might have made me finally give up, roll over, and die. Instead, we shared our misery, and in some indescribable way, it made things livable, even at the worst of times. Alone, we were just scarred children, but together we felt like we could handle anything, even Nook. Some time passed before we could figure out our castaway conundrum. We don't know what they did, but neither of us managed to stay awake for our fateful cab ride to camp, and we both suffered from zero visibility as our driver maneuvered through a torrential downpour. The only possible answer was that something happened to us in that cab, some kind of gas or fume that caused us to pass out and lose time, something that the frog-like cab driver was immune to. Who knows how far we actually traveled? But then there's the question of how we arrived on an island. Penny says she can't picture him anymore. She's been trapped here several years, but I remember the strange cabbie.
So, tell me, Billy, why are you setting sail for camp?
He wanted me to call him Cap'n. He had an odd fishy smell, and it was my first glimpse of the horrible animal residence in camp. He had a salty accent like a crusty fisherman past his prime. The only explanation that makes sense is that the man runs a boat, maybe one big enough to drive a car onto. Maybe he even operates a car ferry like the ones my family used to take when we make road trips cross-country. Penny thinks this is probably right. She's always wondered how they found the bottled messages she had flung out to sea. But our method of capture may be our means of escape. Looking at the map we stitched together, there seems to be 2 logical locations where a ferry or boat might be docked, on the western or eastern tips, where there doesn't appear to be an enclosed camp. Stealing their own boat would be our best bet. We'd have a reliable getaway, and with any luck, they wouldn't be able to chase us. We just hoped it didn't have sails. We knew we couldn't take all the other captives with us. Even with all the other children on the island, we were outnumbered 10 to 1. It was obvious that we'd have help sent later. First, we needed to escape from our own camps, and I had been failing at this pretty consistently. Even with the prospect of real escape and Penny's friendship, the gyroids hung like storm clouds in the back of my mind. How could I escape and still take them with me? I had only been thinking about the problem for a few months, but Penny had 100 plans. Water escape was too risky. There was just way too many factors. Fuck this. From the shore, we could see tall breakers out in the ocean, rolling over 10 feet high. We knew we wouldn't have the strength to overtake them, and the mere thought of trying to build a full-sized raft under the watchful eyes of Nook and his spies sent a shiver down my spine. Penny was punished for just sending bottles. I don't know what they'd do if they caught me in the middle of an all-out escape. Not to mention the captain and his boat, which we'd suspect he'd used to patrol the surrounding waters. But groundside looked equally impossible. Fuck this. Just like my town, and I can only assume all the rest, Penny reports guard dogs permanently on duty at the camp gates. The only times the gates would be open were to move animal residents in and out, which they would only do when they were sure nobody was watching. Our saving grace was that, over time, Penny found out something interesting. There was someone that never used the gates to get around. Tom Nook. And fuck you. We need to know how Nook traveled between camps after he closed up his shop every evening. Penny's problem was that he was almost never in her town anymore, which is where I came in. I wondered why I saw so much of Nook if there were so many different camps to watch over. Are there Tom Nook copies all over the island? That seemed far-fetched, even after the fucked up things we've seen so far. No, what probably happened is that Nook will concentrate on fresh meat, spend most of his time on new campers until he's managed to break them or feels confident that they're too stupid to understand what's going on. I've been giving him trouble, so he may have been sticking around longer than usual. I would never have figured all this out on my own. Between the two of us, we came up with a plan and put it into action the next evening. It's go time. Nook doesn't use the gates to get around the island, and we don't want the guard dogs messing with the plan. As inconspicuously as possible, I spent the day digging for fossils in front of my camp gate. Penny helped me come up with a design for a pit trap that I laid over the holes to camouflage them. If the guards were to come charging out the gates, that should slow them down. My next problem was that once Nook emerged from his shop in the evening, it would be tricky to shadow him. I'd have to stay in camo and avoid any residents that were still roaming the camp in the evening light. I'd try to take cover behind trees and make quick dashes if I was going to remain unseen. Realizing their love for retarded bullshit festivals, I put up a notice on the bulletin board that I hope would keep some of the more stupid residents indoors that night. Written by Billy. Hi everybody, tomorrow night is the Stay Indoors Festival. I hope everyone will be able to attend. The third problem was that once I escaped, I couldn't just abandon the town without putting everyone on alarm. Once I knew where to find Nook's secret escape route, we'd have to find one for Penny too, hopefully in a similar spot. Then we'd have to make another effort to find the docks and steal a boat. It was all very risky and complicated, and honestly, the longer we waited, the more my nerves got to me. I wouldn't allow myself to imagine what would happen to us if we got caught. The moment of truth. I couldn't risk being seen, so I strained to hear the beep and whoosh of the automatic sliding door that would mark Nook's departure. As I hit around the corner of the Nook and Go, the sun setting slowly in the horizon, I began to get jittery and paranoid. I jumped at every rustle of the leaves and the buzz of evening insects. I constantly glanced back at the town gates, fully expecting guard dogs to come charging around the corner, hurdle the pit traps, and sink their spears into my aching chest. So I waited, and it was the longest night of my young life. Part 7, Nightlight. I waited, and I waited, all night. Nook never came. It must be 3 a.m. now, and drowsiness is starting to make me clumsy and dangerous to the mission. Quiet as death, I slinked around the corner of the store and peered into the inky blackness of the shop, terror seeping into my imaginative brain. At first I thought I could see shapes shambling in the dark recesses, and I almost lost my nerve before realizing it was just the ever-swinging arm of a grandfather clock Nook had on display that day. The closed sign had been turned. Sorry, we're closed. Our hours of operations are 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. The door was locked. The shop was abandoned. I swore under my breath, utterly perplexed by Nook's twilight getaway. Could he possibly have known I was watching? Could he really have been that quiet? He is some kind of fucking raccoon. After all, a thief in the night as they are called. I strained into the distance, hoping to see the hint of a shadowy figure sulking away, or skulking away, I didn't know, but there was nothing. I had failed, and I was beginning to grimly make my way back to my house when I remembered the pit traps. As I began to clear away the evidence, an odd red glow made its way into my peripheral vision. I looked up, slightly curious, slightly panicked, to see that the night clouds were reflecting the soft red glow, as though from far away that seemed to be pulsating slightly. The sky was lit up like dawn, but it wasn't moving. It was the middle of the night. That's when I heard the siren, faintly in the distance. It was like a foghorn or an air raid siren you would hear during a military strike. It was enthralling and terrifying. Could this possibly have something to do with our plans? Why tonight of all nights? I quickly gathered up my work and dove into my house, half expecting the door to be busted down by angry residents with machetes and pitchforks. Cautiously, I peered through the slightest of cracks in my door. To my relief, the residents were just as surprised as I was and had started to come outside to look, though after only a few minutes the red light had faded off. I boldly went out to join them, as though I myself had been aroused from my bed. There was some murmuring and a few odd glances, but eventually the party died down.
All the cool kids are asleep by now, huh? Wow. You need to be to sleep.
What?
That was good, Joey. That was good. A for effort. A for effort.
That works. Nobody would tell me what was going on. They all suggested I just go back to bed, but I got the impression they truly didn't know. As I walked back to my house, I overheard a disturbing comment.
Haven't seen that in a good 10 years.
Drawled Tortimer. What did he mean? Had this camp really been around for that long? If children had been kidnapped 10 years ago, where were they now? The thought crossed my mind that with all the other children that were starting to find out what was going on here, someone had made a mistake. Maybe there was an escape or a fight. Maybe tonight was the last night for some poor bastard on the other side of the island. Maybe our cover was blown. I had to send Penny a message, but first I'd have to wait for the crowd to disperse. I was already groggy from a sleepless night, and morning was just starting to break by the time the residents had gone back to their homes. As usual, I found a likely seashell, marked it, and was about to send it flying when I received the third surprise that day. A balloon in the morning? Apparently Penny already had the same idea as me and was a little quicker about it. This one wasn't like our usual balloons, though. It teetered oddly in the sky, a little too heavy to catch the wind, and was coming down quickly. It almost looked like it had sprung a leak. I helped it along before anyone saw, and scooped it up and trucked it back to my house.
Dear Billy, I have to write really quickly. They might be looking for me. You're not going to believe what happened. From Penny. Dear Billy, the secret passage are built into Nook's shops all over the island. From Penny.
Holy shit. I read through Penny's long letter slowly, my fatigued brain stumbling on the words. I feel like such an idiot. Now I understand why I didn't see Nook leave last night. He builds his escape tunnel directly into each store. That'd explain how he can constantly change his merchandise and why I would never see him outside. Penny couldn't wait last night. She knew Nook wasn't in her town and broke into her own store in the middle of the night, where she was surprised to discover the underground tunnels. She says there was a whole network of them under the island that leased each of the camps, and she had sent me a quick sketch of what she had mapped out. The center of the map is where we previously had a question mark, and the white line showed where the tunnels ran, branching out and running underneath each of the camps. The real shock was the main tunnel that circled in the middle. Penny had found a ladder that led up from the underground to the surface. She had hoped the tunnel she had followed that night would lead to the docks. It didn't. It led to Nook's house. I would have shit my pants if I suddenly found myself at Nook's doorstep and probably run away in fear. Not Penny, though. She broke in. Nook built his house in the middle of the island, the area I had coincidentally noted with a giant white question mark. Penny says it's lavishly furnished, but completely unprotected. Nook is apparently quite confident that nobody would be visiting anytime soon. But what she wrote next is what blew my mind. As Nook slept in his master bedroom, she found his office and rifled through his personal folders. She stole every scrap of information she could find and was about to take off. And that's when she saw him. I can only imagine the unbridled horror of looking up to see Nook watching you from the shadows of his own house, rage burning like coals in those dead eyes of his. She ran for her life, broke through a window, and tripped the alarm that lit up the sky that night, but she kept running. Somehow she found her way back to her camp, but she knew she was in trouble. Nook had seen her.
Dear Billy, I don't know if he recognized me, but I can't risk it. You're the only one I can trust with this. From Penny.
She didn't even have time to read what she had stolen. Oh my god, it's all right here in the box. I peeked into the box and could immediately see that it wasn't the usual garbage. She wasn't lying. In my hands, I held the answers to all my questions, the documents that would tell me the reason I was here and how to escape. The box was overflowing with bent folders, printouts, and forms outlining every action Nook made. I had Nook's personal files. Part 8, Heart of Darkness. I pondered the box that contained the documents while my brain screamed in horror in the back of my head, as though it was trying to destroy itself through sheer force of will. It was stuck in a loop between desperately wanting to know the truth and trying to jump out of my own skull and drop itself gleefully into the ocean. And then I began. The folders contained numerous business papers, formal contracts with various laborers and contractors to provide construction, the purchase of a private island, various receipts, though I never find a document that says exactly where the island is located. I get the sense that at the time it had only just been discovered. Apparently a long time ago, Nook bought this island. It's hard to tell for sure, but judging by some of those dates, it looks like he used to be a real hotshot real estate agent that did exclusive work for the rich and powerful, the kind of douchebag you'd see on highway billboards. It makes me wonder how he got away with looking like a fucked up raccoon. From these papers, I got the impression Nook wasn't a one-man show. He spent the latter part of his career working with a Japanese businessman who invested a large amount of money to purchase the island, and they had made several trips to the island together to plan out construction. This guy's name was Totakeke. Totakeke? Wait a minute. KK. Holy fuck, it's talking about KK Slider! No, Slider used to be Nook's partner? I sorted through a dozen or so construction contracts. Only weeks after buying the island, Tom and KK began building enclosed private beaches for wealthy tourists. That's why all these camps are private and aren't officially walled off. It goes on to explain that construction is slow because of the expense of ferrying materials and day workers. Sounds like we were right about the ferry too, and it looks like it never got finished? Something weird happened almost 10 years ago. Nook canceled all the contracts in the same day, even though it must have cost him millions. According to some receipts, he also purchased all the digging equipment on the island. And that's all I can find. Wait a second, there's a small spiral-bound notebook tucked away in the back of the box. I checked the inside of the cover, and I shuddered. Holy fuck, it's Nook's personal journal. For a moment, I am almost considering not reading it, just burning everything and saving my sanity. I've learned to live with not knowing why I'm here. I don't know if the same can be said once I find out, but it's impossible. I flip the battered cover and swan dive into oblivion. My fingers fly over the pages. I'm reading so fast I only catch glimpses of the entries, but they're converging into one big horrific picture. With every page, I understand more of what has happened here.
March 19th, 1997. Construction is slow. It's been raining every day for a week now. March 26th, 1997. The workers dug up more of those freaky statues. They might be valuable. I'm keeping them in my office. April 3rd, 1997. A fight broke out today. One worker was badly injured. I think they were fighting over the statues. April 18th, 1997. Weird things have been happening lately today. People are spooked and half the crew quit today. April 20th, 1997. KK thinks the island is cursed and we should cut our losses. I convince him to give it one more week. May 13th, 1997. I'm staying here. KK can go fuck himself. This is my home. He can't take my gyroids. May 21st, 1997. I had to lock up KK. He threatened to call police. He wants to take my property. He's jealous. It's starting to look different. Feel funny. Can't sleep. KK howls at night. This is wrong, but I have to. Gyroids say so.
Nook's rambling gets worse. Soon the pages just have unintelligible scribbles or childlike drawings. There's clearly a section of the journal that's been torn out, probably because it was nothing but pure crazy. I'm surprised to find that the journal picks back up 7 years later and seems strangely lucid.
August 15th, 2004. Things are going well. Lots of new friends. September 2nd, 2004. I need a lot more. A lot more. At this rate, I'm going to run out in a month. November 24th, 2004. This new plan has worked very well. The young ones crossed the fastest and put up the least fight. December 10th, 2004. My favorite is rabbit.
My blood runs cold. I suddenly know exactly what's happening, and I have to suppress my gag reflex. I want to shut down, go into shock, but I can't stop my brain from fitting all the pieces together. Tom Nook didn't get away with being a raccoon. Tom Nook used to be a man. As he was building his luxury island resorts with his partner KK, the construction crew started unearthing gyroids. Nook began to collect the clay statues, but they were doing strange things to the crew, making them act odd. KK wanted out, but Nook convinced him to wait one more week, and then the gyroids got to him. I suddenly flashed back to an old conversation I had with Nook. At the time, it seemed utterly insignificant, but now I get the context.
I completely forgotten to mention a very important thing I must ask you. What's your favorite animal? Billy, I want to give your life some meaning, That's why I ask.
Oh crap. The longer you're exposed to the gyroids, the more you cross over into some fucked up mutant animal creature. I flipped back through the journal and reread the page carefully as the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. Nook called it Animal Crossing. Well, that's where we get the title from.
Done, done. Product placement.
We're going with that. That's why the island is full of animal people. But Nook realized that it takes time. Judging by the dates in the journal entries, it can take over 6 months, and children cross quicker than that. His biggest problem would be keeping people captive and healthy for so long. Oh, fuck. Oh my god, it all makes sense. This entire fucking camp is designed to keep me distracted. The lie, the pointless job, the house, the trap, KK. Now I know why he looks so sad, like he's resigned to his fate. That's why he doesn't stay at my camp. He probably travels to all the island cells on different days, trying to cheer up the children forced to live here. I decide that if I'm going to get out of here, I'll come back for KK. Then there's the museum. That's why it's empty. It's a completely pointless waste of time. I bet after each child crosses over, they empty out all the shit they've collected for the next victim to start all over. Fucking blathers, always trying to keep my... Fossils. Fuck, I'm an idiot. There are no dinosaur bones at sea level. They're all planted here. They don't rise out of the ground. They're put in. The residents must go around while I sleep and put in new ones for me to find. That's why there's always a mound of dirt where fresh fossils are buried. That's why other residents never contributed to the museum. That's why I saw Tengi that night wandering around with a shovel. Wait, would that mean... the goddamn gyroids. Fuck me. Nook wanted me to find them. He wanted me to put them in my house and obsess about them. If he forced me to keep them around, I'd fight it, but this way... Oh, fuck. Ever since I found them, I've been slow. My thoughts have been cloudy, and it seems like the more you're exposed to this, the quicker you cross over. I think I'm still human, but I can't even remember how long I've been here anymore. But that leaves just one question. The big one. Why is Nook turning us into animals? I reread his journal slowly and tried to think of all the things that had happened to me here, my hand shaking uncontrollably. It all comes back to the gyroids. I know they try to talk to me, but I can only imagine what they say to Nook. He was the first to fall to their influence. He's the original. What are they trying to tell him to do? And then I start to figure it out. He eats us. He eats us. That's why residents just disappear one day without a trace. Once they become an animal, he eats them. Sick fuck. Are the gyroids telling him to do it? Is he just playing out some kind of rabid raccoon behavior? What the fuck? I think he just likes it. And I tried to catch my breath, but it was hard to breathe and the walls were closing in on me. I completely lost track of time, shuffling through the huge stack of files and papers all day, and the sun was starting to come down. I was starting to hyperventilate and feel dizzy. I didn't know what to do. All I could think about was Penny. What had they done to her? I might have lost my mind right then if my door hadn't suddenly been busted down. Mutant animal freaks swarmed in, their clawed hands scoring my skin as they dragged me screaming from my house into the darkness of night.
So, does this mean Animal Crossing is Pleasure Island from Pinocchio?
I think it's worse than Pleasure Island, actually. This is a really, 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 really fucked up idea for a very sweet and innocent game. Part 9. No good deed goes unpunished. I woke up with a headache so severe I immediately puked over the side of the bed. My head rang like a bell, and my sight was blurry as if I had been on the blender from hell, or bender, I don't remember. I could only remember fragments of last night, but I remembered enough to know what I had read. The other residents had suddenly broken into my house. They somehow knew I had the documents. They dragged me from my house, a makeshift grave already dug for me, where they buried me up to my waist and set to beating me with their hooves and claws. I thought this would be the end, and eventually I blacked out. Now I was back in my bed. I was having really trouble focusing my vision and it was making me nauseous. I went to rub my eyes when I felt the patch. They had beaten me pretty bad and then bandaged me up. They didn't want to kill me, they just wanted to break me. The entire side of my head was numb with pain. Some of my thoughts flew back to Penny. If they could do this to me just for reading something I shouldn't have, what would they do to her? Was she dead? I mean, it was almost too much to bear. I had to know. I had to find out if she was okay. I managed to hobble onto my feet and head downstairs. I suppose I wasn't surprised to find out that they had taken everything I had made or owned. The house was utterly empty except for the gyroids. Goddamn monstrosities. Nothing had changed. The residents acted as though nothing had happened. They openly mocked me, as if we had all shared a wonderful spot of tea and biscuits last night.
Nice to see that your house is getting a little bigger, Billy.
In my mind, I imagined a knife plunging into their horrid faces over and over. A horse-shaped resident walked by awkwardly. He looked at me oddly, with more sympathy than I had ever seen from anyone besides KK, and he nervously approached and whispered.
When Tom Nook, when he got obsessed with that kind of thing, all of camp suffered. Oh, too many tears. I can't even see you. I just can't even talk about what happened right now, Tenderfoot.
I felt like shit, but I don't think he was apologizing for a beating. What did he mean about Nook being obsessed with that kind of thing? Didn't he mean the part where Nook fucking eats you? Suddenly a new kind of numbness started to set in, and I realized it wasn't just emotional. I couldn't feel my left eye. I poked my patch and it depressed. A little too much. They took my eye. They took my fucking eye. A month ago, I would have cried until I was spent. I would have run to my bed and pulled the covers over my head and prayed for a quick death. But this is just Nook's way of saying I had seen too much. But I was beyond afraid. I felt nothing. A dozen seashell letters were sent over the wall in the next few days where they must have started to pile up. There wasn't much else I could do. I had fallen into a terrible state of antipathy, whatever that word is, I don't remember. Nothing mattered. My existence was pointless. I would never escape, and one day my ambitions would be nothing more than being shot out of Tom Nook's ass. The only thing that kept me going was the hope that Penny was still alive. I would spend all my time staring east in a catatonic state, as if Penny were going about her daily business, preparing a balloon with a smile on her face, anxiously awaiting a reply. I knew that wasn't the reality of it. At the very least, she would be locked up and under constant supervision. But a glimmer of hope crossed my mind. Maybe it's too important to Nook that we cross over. Maybe he won't kill his victims because he needs us more than we need him. Even at the darkest times, hope springs eternal. I knew that I wouldn't give up until I rescued Penny, and she would do the same for me. A week passed and my depression and physical pain had started to wane, but I was beginning to have vivid nightmares. I wouldn't go for more than a few hours without screaming myself awake. I guess it wasn't surprising. My whole life had become one big nightmare. One morning was especially bad. I didn't know what Penny looked like, but I could imagine her shrieking in terrible pain. As I woke up in a panic that morning, the voice faded off into the morning light, and I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I unexpectedly remembered something that had been kicking out of me a few nights before. I knew what I was going to do. I remembered the axe I had brought from Nook. I had hidden it away under my bed for an emergency like this, and I prayed they hadn't found it. And they hadn't. I was going to chop down some trees, make a raft, and float around the rocky outer shore to Penny's camp, where I'd burst into her cabin and save her, and we'd float off into the sunset. I knew it seemed stupid and impossible, but I was too tired of complicated plans, and I was tired of failing. I was finally prepared to take action. I dared anyone to get in my way, and I almost wished they would. With the sun high in the sky, I headed to the water and started hacking at the closest tree. Not only did it not attract the attention I thought it might, I hadn't seen any residents at all that day. It was a little eerie, to be honest, but I wouldn't be distracted. If they were off at a security meeting or some other bullshit, all the better. All my bravado vanished with a flicker on the horizon. A balloon. It seemed completely impossible, but there it was, hanging heavily in the sky. I had lost my slingshot and my depth perception was terribly poor, but I was prepared to fling all the stones on the island to get that balloon to drop. And it didn't take long before the package came down with a damn thud. I tore away the wrapping paper to find the usual battered envelope. She had always written to me with a particular flowery stationery. This wasn't it.
Dear Billy, I've been a bad girl. You probably think I'm innocent, but I'm not. And I'll tell you why. I screamed for 3 days, and they took my tongue. I threw bottles to sea, and they took my arm. But worst of all, I stole what was not mine, and I lied about it. So you see, I'm not so innocent. I hope that you will make better choices, Billy. I've sent you my last gift. I don't need it anymore.
God damn those goosebumps. Jesus. You did that a little too well.
I try.
I was kind of freaked out with the "I've been a bad girl" line.
Well, what would you rather? What would you rather do it like this?
Oh, please. I've been a bad girl.
No. 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 No.
What the fuck? My hands went instinctively to the box where I began to tug at the lid. I stopped. Something was wrong with this box. It had slumped to the side and the wrapping paper on the bottom half looked moist, like a fast food bag holding a greasy hamburger. My gut screamed at full force to leave the package where it lay. Walk away. In my head I shrieked, "Don't open it. Whatever you do, don't open it." And it clawed at my brain like fingernails on a chalkboard. I saw my hand reach towards the lid as though I had no control over my muscles. The lid fell to the side. And I'm gonna cliffhanger all of you.
No, I want to keep reading.
Asshole. See,
They put Penny's head in the bag, didn't they?
you see, the funny thing is, this story has two endings. One is called the Pro Box ending, and the other one is the Anti-Box ending. The Pro Box has 3 parts, 10, 11, and 12, and Part 13 is the alternate ending. As much as I think everybody here would love to do the next part, we're probably overgoing like almost an hour. So that's what Episode 3 is for. In Episode 3, more than likely, since I've scheduled a lot of things and settled on stuff, we're going to find out what happens in Episode 32. So sorry. You're going to have to wait till next season to figure out what happens. But yeah, what do you guys think so far now that the story has gotten even more intense?
I is scared.
I am.
I want to know what
I'm
happens now.
Yeah, I'm actually a little legitimately frightened.
In the words of Apple Bloom, I can't believe we're gonna do this. I want it now.
I'm so sorry that you guys have to wait, but trust me, the wait will be worth the wait and will be worth it stuff. And of course, if you guys want to keep like hearing what happens and stuff, please put down in the comments below. Sadly, by Chewbot, this is the only thing I think that he's actually written. If not, then I don't know.
He used to write more stuff like this. The kid's got talent.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is one of the best creepy stories I've ever
Yeah.
read. But, of course, once we get to the alternate endings, then we're going to find out what really happened. And then, of course, we'll just say, oh, what do you believe, and all that other stuff. So, yeah, this is episode 28 of FlameAmigo619 Breeds. Like, comment, subscribe, swag. We will see you guys next week. Have fun. Don't die.